Well, first things first, hello. I'm delighted to welcome you all to the new format of ideasSPACE with the Urban Design Group and Urban Nous, and me, Christopher Martin. I'm on the executive committee of the Urban Design Group and co-founder and director of urban strategy at Urban Movement, a practice that was started specifically to explore the design of complex urban environments where transport meets everyday life. I'm also a trustee of Living Streets and on the United Nations Planning and Climate Action Group. For this episode, we'll be focusing on Birmingham, which is, as it happens, my hometown city, talking about the city's story of regeneration with someone at the very heart of its success, Councillor Waseem Zaffar. He is a cabinet member for Transport and the Environment and is on the West Midlands Combined Authority Environmental Board. Councillor, thank you for joining us.
Hi, Chris. Thank you for having me.
We're very grateful for you taking the time out, especially at the moment. Now, anyone who's been to the Venice of the North knows we had to talk about Birmingham's canals and waterways, an often overlooked resource in urban transportation. What ideas do you have for potentially bringing the canals more into transport play, and what do you think are the benefits of doing so?
So every week I end up exploring a new section of the Birmingham Canals navigation, and it's an amazing asset. You know, the Birmingham story is quite an incredible story, and the role of canals in Birmingham, you know, a 250-year-old story is quite incredible. But you're right, today the needs of the canals are very different to what they were 250 years ago. But I think they're a huge asset that we can do so much with. The potential is huge, substantial, just for people's well-being. I think there's so much we can do. There's a particular area, we've got the new hospital being built, the Midlands Metropolitan University Hospital. Yeah. Where you've got the canal waterway, which is currently blocked, going right into the hospital. And then if you've got City Hospital, which is run by the same NHS trust that I'm also a non-exec director there. Right. And we were just looking, you'll have approximately 6,000 or 7,000 people employed at these two sites, which are a 10 to 15 minute walk on the canal waterway, on the tow paths. So we were thinking about the opportunities that we'll have. So you've got 6,000 to 7,000 people working there. You've also got people there, who will have care, patients. Obviously, you'll have carers. You've literally got a community of, say, 10 to 12,000, probably more people there a day. And the ability to create some commercial opportunities too, such as cafes and recreate that sort of Brindley Place environment there is huge. So it's not just a hospital we're building. Well, we can literally build a number of community services around it. And then you've got the option that the two councils are currently looking at is building housing on either side of this. So the thing that links it all together is the canal. So we've got such a fantastic asset that's so undervalued and underused as a city. And then when it comes to air quality, I'd rather we had people walking and cycling on the canals where they haven't got segregated cycle routes than on the road. So for me, it's how we can increase the segregated cycle routes on the build upon our blue routes. We've got the pop-up cycle lanes which are currently being launched. 15 kilometers of them in the short term, and hopefully will grow longer. And then if we can have sort of a Birmingham map up for safe cycling, where you've got the canal network, but more importantly, obviously, you've got segregated cycling lane on the highway too, linking the two up and linking up green spaces and blue spaces. I think there's real opportunity. As you said earlier, we often talk about we've got more canal miles than Venice. It's now really time to utilize that. And the Canal and River Trust, through John Hudson and Adnan Saif, they've got fantastic leadership there who are really want communities to utilize it. And it's not just for me, it's not just been about physical well-being. I think canals, water, green space, blue space really helps with your mental well-being too. And I've personally seen that on my walks on the canals. And then the final thing I'll say about canals, we've got a real opportunity with the Commonwealth Games coming up.
Of course, yeah.
To get our visitors from Birmingham City Centre, where they'll be enjoying life in the city centre and the fantastic nightlife and everything else that we've got in the city centre, we can actually get them directly from the city centre to Alexander Stadium via the canals. And I was there only a couple of days ago looking at the route. The canal by the stadium is so wide and beautiful. It'll show Birmingham in a totally new way. And I know
that'll be really interesting. Yeah.
the Canal and River Trust are having conversations with us at the council and the organising committee of the games to really offer that alternative option to driving or using public transport. But we may end up with water taxis taking people from the city centre to the Commonwealth Games Village.
I wondered if you could set out your brief story for us, of how you came to be in office, and especially your interest in the transport brief, and what you think is special about the opportunity of this portfolio, and in particular the power of transport investment.
So Chris, I studied logistics and transport management at Aston University as an undergraduate. I graduated in 2001, and I was hoping to go and work within logistics and transport management professionally. But at that particular time, I gained an interest around community work, and in particular, issues disaffected young people in the northwest of Birmingham. One thing led to another, and I ended up being a councillor in 2011, representing the area that I was born in, I've lived in, I was schooled at. Lascelles is part of my DNA. So in 2018, I was asked by the leader of the council, Ian Ward, to take the transport and environment portfolio. And it's a daunting portfolio because it's got a whole host of different aspects to it. You've got the highways, you've got working with partners around public transport, around sustainable transport. You've got the issues around air quality and introducing a clean air zone. And you've also got the challenges that climate change bring, and the urgent challenges that climate change bring. And then you've got all sorts of other things like road naming and features such as that, and the highways contract, which includes the trees on the highway, the drainage systems, the lampposts, the pavements, the roads. So it's a huge portfolio. And the way people move, the over-reliance of private car over walking, cycling and public transport, I think has a huge role to play in terms of better air quality, but also better physical and mental health too. So I think, I see the role of transport and environment far greater than just in isolation, and it links into inclusive growth, links into employment, links into job opportunities and skills development, and most importantly, health and well-being too.
I grew up in Birmingham as my closest city, as I mentioned earlier. So I remember it as it was, roads in the sky, dual carriageways cutting through the city in every direction. Is this how you remember Birmingham before you came into office?
Yeah, it's always been about private car. It's how, whether you can travel half a mile or 20 miles across this city, it's all about car and how car can get from A to B and also pop into C too. And there's been very little sort of priority given to decision making that support public transport. Our buses are so important in the city, yet they get stuck in traffic constantly within our city. And there's a piece of work that Tom Forth, who used to be a resident of Birmingham, who looked at the data analysis of bus journeys at peak times, and literally said Birmingham's productivity shrinks at peak time because the buses are stuck in traffic all the time. I think Birmingham, in particular, the concrete collar and the way we've prioritised car over everything, and I get why we did that. We're one of the regional motor cities, but I think as we realise now, we're a congested city with illegal and unsafe levels of air pollution, and ultimately it's been decades of decisions, decades of prioritising car over sustainable transport. That's got us to where we are, but we've got to make some drastic changes to that.
And since you've been in office, has there been a key point in the story, as you see it, a defining moment, do you think, where Birmingham changed tack and started to focus on regeneration through sustainable and active travel?
So for me, one of the key things we had politically, I feel some of the new councillors that joined the council in 2018 are and people like the chair of scrutiny committee, Councillor Liz Clements, who's lived elsewhere. She's lived in Germany, she's lived in Oxford, so she comes with a wealth of experience, which is not Birmingham. And there's been one or two other councillors, and particularly the leader too, Ian Ward, where we came to a decision: if we continue the way we are, we're expecting a massive rise in the population in Birmingham. Birmingham's the most attractive place for people to move to when they leave London. And we're really proud of that, and we really want to welcome people. But when people come, if we continue with the car culture that we've got in the city, We've got a congested city that costs something like £12 million. Congestion in the city costs our local economy £12 million a week. That has to change. We have to get this right, and we have to change the way we operate.
And what role did the Birmingham Big City Plan play in this? How helpful have you found this document? From my perspective, it seems to be one of the few big urban plans that has been rallied behind, stuck to and delivered. Is that your experience as well? And why do you think this one is so rare?
I think Birmingham's been blessed with some very strong political leadership in recent years, and also civic. When it comes to your civil servants, your officers, we've also been blessed with some really visionary and strong leaders. So I'm talking in terms of the council leadership. You've had people like Sir Albert Bohr, Ian Ward, the current leader. You've had people like Wahid Nazir, who was, really the person behind the big city plan, who's recently moved on from Birmingham City Council. And people who are passionate about the city, they've seen the city, they've grown up in the city, they understand it, but yet they want to take it on a journey that's far better for the city. We look at the pockets of deprivation, and you've got the maps of deprivation within our city that have been like they are at this moment in time for decades, and something has to change. You've got some major areas of the city where youth unemployment and unemployment as a whole is far higher than national levels. The Ladywood constituency, which includes the city centre, I think is the second most deprived constituency in the country. My ward, Lascelles, has the highest levels of youth unemployment in this city. And we absolutely understand that and I think we're starting to do this. We have to attract far greater amounts of investment into our city. But by doing that, we have to make the city more attractive for people to live in,
Absolutely.
to work in, and to enjoy life in. And I think that has been absolutely key. And I want Birmingham to be an attractive place for families to grow up in, for people to work, because we've got clean air, not just legal air, but we've got safe levels of clean air in every single neighbourhood. And I think that is a sort of a personal ambition of mine, to ensure that every child in my city of Birmingham has that fundamental human right of clean air, and that doesn't hinder their health or well-being. And sustainable modes of transport. We want people to be able to get about, have far more options than private car, have bus, tram networks increasing substantially. We're looking at the cross-city bus services too. We're ensuring that they're reliable by giving bus lanes and bus gates priority over space for private car. And then walking, cycling, we've now got the e-scooters pilot too. So these are other options that we're introducing for people by making Birmingham a more walkable, cyclable city of Game Village.
I would like to move on, if you let me, to working with the community and local government. You've previously talked about the benefits of delegating power to community members to empower them to lead change in their own communities. What would you say are the benefits of this approach, and how exactly have you used it in the past?
I think too often we do things to people rather than with people. One of the things I've really tried to do is engage particular groups of interest in our policy discussions and in our decision making. So I often, when I get a proposal in front of me to sign off, ask, what do the cycling groups in the city think about this? What do the environmental groups in the city think about this? Because they exist for a reason. A lot of them put their personal time as volunteers into wanting to make the city a better place. And it's really important that we engage with them rather than consult them. There's a whole issue and a huge problem in local government where some people do not understand the difference between engagement and consultation. And a lot of the time, the consultation is a statutory consultation which comes right at the end, which you have to do by law. But before that, if you get the engagement right, if you have those real conversations where you're co-designing and co-producing projects with those particular communities, and particularly communities of interest, then when you're out there doing the statutory consultation, you've got those community groups who are championing your work because they've been part of the process. We're getting some challenge at the moment because we're trying out something called experimental traffic regulation orders with some of the pop-up cycle lanes, the low traffic neighbourhoods. And the whole point of doing this is to enable communities to be able to play a very hands-on role in engagement and consultation during the trial period. So, my colleague and friend Lisa Trickett Councillor Lisa Trickett refers to this as a chessboard when it comes to low traffic neighbourhoods. So we'll put a modal filter on a particular road, traffic one way in a particular direction. 2 weeks later, we realise it's not working. We don't need to go down the route of changing a traffic regulation order because it's an experimental traffic regulation order. So we can either move the piece of the chessboard around, i.e. the modal filter, or change the direction of traffic. And then within the 6 months, local residents, people who travel through that particular area, officers of the council have understood what's the best way forward because they've experimented. So the final traffic regulation order, the permanent traffic regulation order, when we consult on that, we've got a near perfect scheme because people have been involved in that. Or if people feel it's not going to work here, they've realized that actually putting something here diverts all the traffic into another place, causing a problem there. That's the last thing we want to do. We want to reduce traffic, not move it to another location on a residential road. We might do away with it altogether. So if we want a healthier city, if we want a safer city, if we want a better city for our kids to grow up in and become successful within, if we want people to come to Birmingham, to whether it's for as a visitor or people to work here or to wanting to live in Birmingham, we've got to make these tough decisions that make Birmingham a far more attractive place.
And more generally, what do you think Birmingham has in store for us in the next decade or more? Where's the city going in terms of its transport, for example, and indeed the environmental crisis we face? And how is it going to sort of flex and shape up for increased city centre living going forwards?
So I think Birmingham's got an exciting 10 years ahead of us. HS2 will be a big game changer. In fact, it's already been a game changer. The fact that you've got businesses such as HSBC relocating their UK headquarters here. You've got other organisations, national organisations moving their regional headquarters to Birmingham. These are jobs being created. These are hundreds and if not thousands of families that will be moving to Birmingham because of these jobs. So it's a huge game changer. But HS2 on its own won't be successful if we don't continue with our pro-people agenda. And sometimes people accuse me, in particular political opponents, of being anti-car, and I refute that. I'm pro-people. I'm not anti-car. And the Labour administration in Birmingham is pro-people too. And if we are to tackle the issues that climate change brings, and we haven't got time. We're fighting against time in terms of our battles against climate change. We need to act, and we need to act today. Otherwise, in years in the future, we will live to regret not acting today. So we've got a lot of hard work to do, but there's a real will in Birmingham to make this happen. And obviously, within the next 10 years, my beloved Aston Villa will be champions of the country. They'll be European champions, and there'll be a huge, huge success. And I say that jokingly, but football clubs also play a huge role in a city's international brand. We've seen that with Liverpool. We've seen that with Manchester. We've seen that with places like Madrid and Barcelona. So I think a successful local football club will go a long way in our international attraction. Villa has a huge history, and you can go to almost anywhere in the world and talk about the history of a football club like that and link it to a city like Birmingham. But if we were to be successful, I think there's a lot of huge further success that we can have for here in Birmingham too.
We're coming to the end of the time we have available. But one final question. The job of government is never done. The job of shaping cities is never done, and I can attest to that. That being said, where do you see yourself in 20 years? And I know you're a big cricket fan, so we can say apart from taking to the commentary box of Test Match Special.
I honestly don't know. I'd like to. I'm in a really privileged position right now, and it is a privilege to be able to have this role in your own city. Being a councillor in your neighbourhood and being a cabinet member responsible for transport and environment in your city is a huge privilege, and it's not something that the political careers are incredibly short. So I don't know where I will be in 2 or 3 years' time. Never mind 20 years.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. And indeed, thank you for taking the time out to speak with us today and share your insights, which will be very valuable to everyone involved in shaping cities. And thank you to everyone who's been listening into this. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of ideasSPACE by the Urban Design Group and Urban Nous with me, Christopher Martin. More episodes coming your way, so please do give me your feedback on the new format and check out the events page of the Urban Design Group website to see more big interviews, regeneration stories, and around urban specials. Thank you.